And how has, within the ANZAC format, how has the role of the Indian Army been recognized or commemorated in different ways and fashion? How do you
Yeah,
see that?
yeah, that's really important. There are several facets to that, Dev. One is that especially because of the Indian diaspora, the number of Indians and especially Sikhs in Britain has made the Commonwealth War Graves Commission, which basically runs all the British Empire cemeteries for the World Wars. The Commonwealth War Graves Commission has become acutely sensitive to the way in which Indians are commemorated. Basically, the British Indian Army went to a lot of trouble to observe the religious practices of its troops. So it would bury the ones that were buried, and it would burn the ones that were cremated. They would attempt to do that. It would attempt to put the right inscriptions on headstones and things. But it became clear in the decades after the Great War, two things became clear. The first is that they missed Indians. One of the great boasts of the Commonwealth War Graves Commission was that they would commemorate every single person, whether they had a grave or a name on a wall, everyone. Well, it turns out that's not the case for the Indians and non-European troops. That the Commonwealth War Graves Commission, to its great credit, has now gone back through military records and has started to find men who were killed or who died, but who aren't on cemetery lists and who don't have names on memorials. And it's rectifying that by revising those memorials. The other thing is that when this book was launched in 2015, a woman in the audience said, the Indian names aren't usually on memorials. And I said, oh, of course they are. Look at Gallipoli. I've been to Gallipoli. I've seen these names. They're on the memorials. And it's true. All of the Indian dead of Gallipoli are named on the Great Hellas War Memorial, alongside the British, alongside the Australians, New Zealanders. But that's not the case all over the world. If you go to Mesopotamia, to Iraq, there's an enormous memorial, which used to be at Baghdad. Now it's been shifted to Basra. And it's a big memorial because Mesopotamia was the main theater for the Indian Army in the Great War. Tens of thousands of Indian names, but they're not names, they're numbers.
Oh.
A typical memorial plaque at Basra will say memory of unit, British officers named, Indian officers named, and 353 Indian other ranks. They're not named. So that's something which we're now embarrassed about and should do something about. So Indian commemoration, the commemoration of Indians, is now become much more important than it used to be. And that they're also visible in memorials like the memorial in Western Sydney. In Britain, there are Sikh memorials that have been erected. So it's a sense in which it's a post-colonial thing, that rather than taking for granted that, of course, Indian soldiers don't need their names recorded, now they're being paid respect to individually.
Very powerful.